Hey there, CJ Math students. So today we're going to actually start working on operations with rational numbers, specifically integers. Remember, integers are whole numbers and their opposites. So whole numbers and their opposites. So for instance, something like 1 and -1. 1 and -1 are both integers, right? So there are a couple of rules that we can use to add integers, and they're very simple. We just remember a couple of quick acronyms. So rule number 1, to add rational numbers with the same sign by adding the absolute values and using a common sign. Now that's a really fancy way for saying the simple way to remember it is same signs, you add them and keep the sign. So for letter A, decide whether the sum will be positive or negative without actually calculating the sum. So just if I have two negatives and I add them together, my sum should be negative. If I have two positives, my sum should be positive. So for letter I, -4 plus -2, my sum should be negative. Think about the number line. I'm moving 4 times left, and then I'm moving another 2 times left. 5 plus 9, my sum should be positive. I had two positive numbers, right? In fact, on this one, you could put positive 14. Let's even try this. -4 plus 2. Well, I'm going to add them together. What's 4 plus 2? It's 6. And I'm going to keep the sign. What's the sign? It's negative. So -6. 5 plus 9, I add them. They're the same sign. They're both positive. And I keep the sign, which is a positive sign. We don't put plus 14. We just put 14. -6 plus -3 is obviously going to be negative. I'm going to add them together. What's 6 plus 3? That's 9. And I keep the sign. The important part is keeping the sign. There is a big difference between 9 and -9. Even though that little negative sign may seem insignificant, it is very important. You must treat it like you are a surgeon operating on a very important patient, like the President of the United States, right? When you are operating with negatives, you must make sure whether or not you know to include them or exclude them. So -1 plus -11. They're same sign, so we're going to add them up and keep the sign. So my answer will definitely be negative. And 1 plus 11 is 12. But if you just put 12, you're wrong. -12. Big difference. 3 plus 5 plus 7. It's all going to be positive because they're all positive numbers. And 3 plus 5 is 8. Plus 7 is 15. What about -20 plus -15 plus -10? My answer is going to be negative, obviously, because they're all negative numbers. And I like to do -20 plus -10 is -30 plus -15 gives me -45. Or -20 plus -15 is -35 plus -10 is -45. Either way works. All right, so same signs, add, keep. Now, this is a tough one, right? The rule is add rational numbers with opposite signs by subtracting the absolute values and using the sign of the integer with the greater absolute value. Absolute value, remember, absolute value of 5 is equal to 5. The absolute value of -5 is equal to 5. There is no such thing as a negative absolute value, right? The absolute value of 1, let's make that 4, is equal to the absolute value of -4. Why does that make sense? Well, what's the absolute value of 4? 4. What's the absolute value of -4? 4. 4 equals 4. That's a true statement. Okay? Sorry about that. So, circle the integer with the greater absolute value. Just imagine you were using chips, right? Positive and negative signs. You're going to circle the one where there's more of them, okay? So then decide whether the sum will be positive or negative. So are there more negatives? There's one negative here. Or are there more positives? There are two positives. There are more positives. So my answer is going to be positive. So what's the simple rule we can follow? If they're different signs, meaning one's positive and one's negative, you subtract it and keep the sign of the larger. So really, we are going to do 2 minus 1, which is 1. And since I circled a positive number, my answer will be positive. Let's do this again. Are there more positives or more negatives? Well, I have 5 positives. I have 9 negatives. So my answer is going to be negative. I can go ahead and put a negative sign right away since I know my answer is going to be negative. And then I'm going to take the larger number, do 9 minus 5, even though in reality I know -9 is a smaller number, it has a larger absolute value. So I do 9 minus 5, which is equal to 4. But my answer is -4, not 4, because there were more negatives. Let's take a look at this one. -6 and 3. Are there more negatives or positives? I have 3 positives, 6 negatives. There are more negatives because I have 6 of them. So I'll do 6 minus 3, and I'll get 3. Is that my answer? No, my answer is -3. Why? Because I had more negatives. All right? I could draw this out for you. Here are the 6 negatives, and here are the 3 positives. Opposites cancel out. See you later to those of you. And I'm left with 3 negatives. That's why I'm getting -3. I want you to do 4, Roman numeral 4 through Roman numeral 7 on your own. Stating first, circling whether it's positive or negative. This is the bigger absolute value. Stating whether your answer will be positive or negative, and then actually doing the subtraction. Even though it's a plus sign, you're really subtracting in your head and getting the answer. This is the trickiest part, because when they're different signs, you're going to see a plus sign and you're going to want to add them together. In your head, you have to say different signs subtract. I want you to write D, S, S, L. And here I want you to say different signs subtract. It's going to be a tough one to remember, but if you write down DSSL, I say I have different signs. What do? I subtract. Your Buzz Math levels for today. You're going to be comparing ordering integers. I want you to skip number 10. Please make sure you're aware of that. Skip number 10. So which symbol should be placed between -646 and -246 to compare them? Which one is further left? This guy is further left. Since he is further left, he is smaller. So therefore, I would say he is less than -264. This is your answer right there. The further left you go, the smaller you get. Even though it looks like that's 646 and 246, you got to think opposite when you do negatives. Which symbol should be placed between -1004 and -1041? Which one's further left? 1004 or 1041? This guy, further left. So therefore, he is smaller. So we should say -1004 is greater than, or point to the smaller one, -1041. So greater than. Which symbol should be placed when comparing this number? -1034. So write that down. -1034 and -1088. Right? So compare those. Which one's further left? This guy, further left. Because he's further left, that means he's smaller, so we point at the smaller number, eat the bigger number. -1034 is greater than -1088. So let's put these in order from greatest to least. So the number that's closest to 0 is going to the top. The number that's farthest away from 0 is going to the bottom. So closest to 0 is -48. Following that would be -50. Following that would be -53, then -66, and then -71. This is the smallest number here at the bottom. Again, got to take your brain and say, I need to flip my thinking. Now, some of you might have done the second one, absolute value, yesterday. That was because of a mistake. I shouldn't have assigned that to you. I'm sorry. We didn't even talk absolute value. So let's talk about absolute value. Remember, absolute value is simply the distance from 0. And we know that absolute value can only be positive. There's no such thing as negative distance from 0. So distance from 0. So they're each 6 steps away from 0, so the absolute value is 6. What about evaluating -46? What's the absolute value? The absolute value is 46. There is no such thing as the absolute value of -46 being -46. This is 46 spaces away from 0. What about what numbers could I plug in for n equals 17 if the absolute value of n? Well, I know I could plug in 17 because the absolute value of 17 is 17. I could also plug in -17. Check all the following that are true. Is the absolute value of -39 39? Yes, that is true. Is the absolute value of 0 0? Yes, that is true. Is the absolute value of -39 equal to the absolute value of -39? Sorry, is the absolute value of +39 equal to -39? That is actually true. Here's why. The absolute value of 39 is 39. The absolute value of -39 is 39. Does 39 equal 39? Yes, it does. Now, what about the absolute value of 39? Does that equal negative 39? We will never have a negative answer for an absolute value, so no. Lastly, these two problems, let's evaluate the absolute value of negative 1 plus negative 22. You don't do SSAK just yet, right? You have to do the absolute value first. So what is the absolute value of negative 1? 1. What is the absolute value of negative 22? 22. Now just add them together. You get 23. Same thing here. You don't do SSAK. You say, what is 3 plus 4? Okay, it's 7. Now, what is the absolute value of 7? It is still 7. Finally, order these values from least to greatest, right? So the furthest away from 0 is going to be at the top, and the closest to 0 is going to be at the bottom. Easiest thing to do is write these out and then say, okay, what are they equal to, right? So first, absolute value of negative 3 is 3. Absolute value of negative 11 is positive 11. Negative 11 absolute value plus the absolute value of negative 3 is really 11 plus 3, which is 14. Negative 3 is just negative 3, and negative 11 is negative 11. So the least number, the furthest away from 0, from 3, 11, 14, negative 3, negative 11, is negative 11, followed by negative 3, followed by 3, followed by 11, followed by 14. That's a tough one. Take your time on it. Write it out. Write it out. Now get to BuzzMath. Get some work done. Worry about your accuracy. Stop guessing.